And I say hello to Thomas Emanuel, who is director at STR, a trusted partner of PKF Hotel Experts for many years. Hello, Thomas. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Nils. How are you today?
Excellent, excellent. I find you in London, I believe.
You do indeed, yes. Just outside London, in Surrey, where I'm born and bred and still living. So yes, just outside London.
And you're very happy to be at home, or not so happy?
Yes. Well,
has its moments.
It has its moments. It's nice to spend more time with my wife and my children. That's for sure. I spend a lot of time on the road usually, so that's been definitely a plus point of this lockdown. But I think, like everybody else, you want to get back to normal as soon as possible, or whatever that normal.
I just want to say whatever that normal is. But I too, a few months ago, I was cursing the traveling schedule, and now I would love to get back to a little bit of traveling. That would be quite nice, even though I'm very happy to be with the family. But sometimes it's nice to be apart as well. It has its moments. Thomas, you guys have done an enormous amount of work. In particular, now you look at scenarios, you revise those scenarios, you do webinars. How do you manage, as the director, how do you manage to keep the team together and keep the team motivated to keep on revising what you do?
Well, I think we're very lucky. We've got a great team who are very focused and very dedicated. And I think we all appreciate the privileged position that we have at STR as really, guardians of the industry's data. We inform and provide the transparency to what's happening across the industry. So I think we've taken that responsibility pretty seriously. Obviously, it is, these times we've never seen before. So it's been a big focus of the team ever since this started to make sure that we can provide that. And our analysis team, and I think Robin Rossman deserves a shout out there. Obviously, many people will have seen him on the webinars. We really have done our best to make sure that we keep the content fresh, keep the content useful as well, and it's been received very, very well. So I'm quietly confident that we've done a pretty good job in that, and we'll continue to provide the transparency as much as we can as we come out the other side of this, of course, into, as we just said, what is our new normal ultimately.
Yeah. Look, as a consumer of your data, as a user of your data, as somebody who has dialed into many of those, I can confirm you are doing a great job, because I think that's what everybody's looking for, something to hold on to. And if it's revised, then it's revised. But I mean, at least something to kind of build with and work with and whatever. How many webinars have you done to date? I mean, today is the mid-May.
Yep. Well, I checked this yesterday because I wanted to know myself, and we've done 40 as of yesterday.
Wow.
And there was just one today, so 41 now. That's across the globe, of course, and as well as our more regional ones, we've done some more specific ones focused on local markets and obviously in local language and so forth. But yeah, 41 globally to date.
Wow. Any idea on the viewership? How many people have dialed in over those 41 webinars?
The viewer numbers have been fantastic. I don't have the total viewer numbers, but I know we certainly have achieved multiple thousands of viewers for a number of these webinars. So it's definitely been it's great to hear you confirm that, but I think pretty well received by the industry, judging on the numbers of viewers we're getting each week and the response we've had.
Yeah. And then, of course, you guys are always also guests at various other webinars where you get roped in or whatever. So the viewership is probably triple of that what one would assume otherwise. What
those 41, Nils, just to clarify, are just STR ones. So yes, I mean, I know personally I've done many over the past couple of months, as have my colleagues across the globe. So yes, that viewership would be significantly higher.
Now we raised it a little bit, or mentioned that something to hold on to. But what apart from that do the viewers want? Why do people dial in? What is it that your viewers on the webinars that are free, but also those who buy your numbers, your stats? What do they want? I mean, what is it that if you had to sum it up in 2 sentences for those who don't know?
Sure. Well, I think there's two things predominantly that they want. They want to know what's happening, and we will tell you what happened last week. You know, it's the most recent data that's available. So people want to know what's happening. This is a fluid situation. It's, I have to use that word, but unprecedented situation. And people want to know what's happening. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is people are looking to us for thought leadership, for our thoughts around what's going to happen next, and to try and put some perspective around that as well, based on obviously what's happened in the past, but also the knowledge that we have within the company. So I would say those are probably the two key reasons people are tuning in.
If you were to look back now over, is it 2 months? I lost track. And when you started to look at scenario planning, at looking at markets, a few weeks ago, probably even longer now, and then we looked at some green shoots coming out of China, and then there were some reinfections. If you had to look back at the scenarios that you were working on then, which ones, or are there any that came true, the shorter term ones that you looked at, and how did they develop? I mean, it would be interesting to see, because it's nice to sort of from here project, and then you of course need to look at the 30-day out that you're talking about maybe, and say, has it come true or not?
Well, I think you mentioned the green shoots in China, and that's kind of the first thing that I think of when we look at some of those scenarios, because that's really been that was the first one to look at, because it was the first country obviously to come out of lockdown. It was 2 months ahead of Europe, of the States, of everywhere else. So what we saw was, it was leisure driven and it was domestic driven, and those were kind of the two key drivers in those green shoots that we saw in China. And if you look at markets such as Hangzhou or as in Sanya, which are more leisure driven, we saw a faster rebound. And subsequently, when we now look at the States, for example, it hasn't come to Europe yet, but if you look at the States, some of the states which have had less restrictive lockdown, shall we say, we can see, for example, Florida resorts during the weekend, similar situation. So I think that is sort of the first thing that, or the first thing that comes to mind when answering that question, is we've started to see that Chinese effect happening now in the US, and I'm sure it will happen again as we look at Europe as the lockdowns start to lift. We've mentioned in previous webinars, for example, Germany has a very strong domestic travel base, so that market we expect to recover a bit more quickly than others that are more reliant on international visitation. So that would be the first sort of trend that I'd pick up, that we've seen replicated.
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say that this horrible crisis is a great, and I don't say great in terms of positivity, but in terms of size, equalizer, that really most markets have been hit, and will find that they recover slowly in a very similar way. Domestically driven, where there is a domestic market. I mean, look at South Africa, at the most beautiful arse end of the world, where I'm living, right at the bottom or the top, whichever way one looks at Africa. But it's a long haul destination. There is a domestic market, but it's not massive. A lot of product is dependent on long haul. So it's fair to say that this will be the gradual return. It's leisure, then domestic business, domestic leisure, domestic business, and then slowly international business, and then international leisure again. The latest scenarios, what are you looking at? Is there anything that you can maybe give us a peek review or preview of what are you looking at now? Are there things that you see which we haven't heard of in the last few weeks?
I think, well, not entirely. I think we're redoing our forecasts. We forecast every quarter with our friends at Tourism Economics. They'll be out later this month, and obviously our last ones were done 3 months ago, and the world was a very different place. So that forecasted update will come out from STR later this month. So if people are interested, please, of course, get in touch. But I think what we're thinking about when we look at recoveries, and there's a bit of repetition in terms of what I'm going to say here, but we are going to see that immediate response in a way, and what we're kind of deeming a revenge travel at the moment, right? What we also and the other one that came out last week, which we've used a couple of times, is the ketchup effect, where you're wanting to, you've got a bottle of ketchup and you just want a little bit, and you give it a bit of a tap, and then there's a whole splurge comes onto the plate. So there is going to be, we think, that effect, and that, of course, as I mentioned, is going to be predominantly leisure. It's going to predominantly be domestic. And then we feel we will see a bit of an uptick, but then a flattening out, a plateau, because there will only be limited amount of demand coming back into these markets, which will predominantly, as I say, be leisure and domestic. The corporates aren't starting to travel yet. The groups aren't starting to travel yet. So we believe we'll see that uptick, a plateauing for a period of time, and then obviously providing and hoping, of course, that there isn't any kind of a second wave of the virus, then we should start to see that line start to move upwards again once transient corporate business starts to come back online, and the corporates are more relaxed around, you know, their people being on the road. Right. And then in due course, of course, and we believe the last to recover, of course, will be that group segment. A lot will depend on the airlines, of course. A lot will depend on government restrictions. The whole travel ecosystem has been shaken to its core, and will take time to get back to normal. But that's how I think we generally see things are going to move in the coming. Right. I mean, really, it's going to be years ahead. We are talking about a number of years until we get back up to 2019 levels.
Yeah, it looks like it, unfortunately, listening to you and other people as well. Thomas, we're running out of time. Silver lining. Is there a silver lining? Is there something which you personally, you as a company, say, you know what, we learned from this, we take something positive out of this horrid time?
Well, I think we've all got to learn from it, of course. You know, I think our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren will be talking about 2020 in years to come. I think in terms of a silver lining, I think it will force the industry to innovate, and that could well bring some positives. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the industry reacts. I think another positive potentially to come out of this is the profile of our industry, with not just the general public in terms of the appreciation of our contribution towards GDP, which is obviously huge. I mean, I think it's 1 in 6 jobs now. It'll be 1 in 5 jobs in due course. But also the profile within the public sector. You know, we hear lots about manufacturing, and other sectors, which of course are important, but you don't often see politicians talking about the travel and tourism sector and the hotel, the hospitality industry. So I think that could be a positive for our industry as well. And then I think, you know, the other thing, just on a more human level, I think we'll probably learn to appreciate a little bit more what we've got. What was very much taken for granted, we don't have at the moment. So, of course, it will take time, and we will have to adjust. But hopefully, there'll be a positive on that level as well that we can take away from obviously this dreadful time that we're all living through.
Tom, thank you so much for your time. We run over, but it was very, very interesting. I'd love to talk to you for much longer. You have a great day further, and look forward to seeing you in real life, in the flesh, as it were. And if not, we do it via these wonderful digital media. Thank you so much, and be well.
Thanks very much, Nils. Same to you.